How's it going, everyone? This is Kevin. Today I want to bring you along with me to tell you why your first prime lens should be the 35mm focal length. So let's jump right into it. So basically everybody kind of always goes with the nifty 50 for their first prime lens because of the price point, because it's a pretty overall good focal length. The problem is if you have a crop sensor camera, that is not going to be a 50mm lens anymore. So if you're shooting in full frame or want to shoot in crop mode, I think the 35mm lens is a better focal point for when it comes down to an overall lens for video or photography. So now this is my Sigma 35mm 1.4. It's a prime lens and it's actually a very phenomenal lens that I got as my first prime lens whenever I upgraded to full frame. When I first started with my APS-C censored camera, the A6000, I had gotten obviously the kit lens first, then I got the 16mm, and then I believe I got the 60. I can't remember exactly right now, but in all honesty, I should have started with this prime lens and invested a little bit more money into this line. The main reason why is for photography and video, this is such a clean overall lens in reality. The great thing about it goes all the way down to 1.4, so for low light capabilities, it's phenomenal. When it comes down to video, it's very good, pretty fast. I mean, sometimes it'll hunt a little bit, but nothing too bad overall. So the reason why I say if you're going to be shooting APS-C sensor, a 35mm lens would be better is because if you times it by the 1.6, I believe that it comes out to 56mm. So that's more truer to the 50mm lens, like the nifty 50, than if you put a 50mm lens onto a crop body sensor. And the cool thing is that this is a full frame lens, so if you're going to be upgrading to full frame eventually, this is still a phenomenal lens, and it's already a full frame lens for your camera, so it's not going to be cropping in no matter what. The 35mm lens has been my most favorite focal point. If I could choose only one lens and one lens to keep myself, would probably be the 35, mainly because I could still video myself and I can also take cool photos. When I talk about the video part is because when I first started doing full frame camera and video, I actually started with a 35mm lens, and it was up close and personal, but it actually did the job just perfectly fine until I got my 20mm lens from Tamron. So it is an overall really good lens, and I want to show you a couple examples of why you should get it, and it should be your next prime lens or your first if you haven't gotten a prime lens before. So I'm going to switch this lens real quick to my camera and show you what it looks like in comparison to what you're seeing me right now. It's a 20mm lens, and I'm going to shift it into the 35 and show you what it looks like. So let's switch it. And bam, now we're at the 35 focal length. Right now I'm shooting, I think, about 4.5 f-stop because the sun is right there. And I recently just did a video about why you need an ND filter, and even with my ND filter, I still have to keep it at 4.5 even though I'm going all the way almost, just mainly because don't want to get too overblown. I do shoot an S-Log 2, so I do have to overexpose by 2 stops, but even then I don't want to be too overexposed. But this is what it looks like, the 35mm focal length. It's not horrible up close. I mean, obviously I'm a little bit farther back, but not by much. I just barely moving the camera a little bit farther back, and I think this is a really cool just focal point in my opinion with a 35mm, because it just makes everything look a little bit more natural, not as distorted. It just seems right to me. So now let's pretend that I want to drop it down to about its lowest aperture. Right now I am at an f1.4, so this is what it looks like. I get the nice little creamy blur background. I love this lens because of that, because it really does have a really nice bokeh kind of style of a blur. So dropping it down to 1.4 is pretty phenomenal in my opinion. Obviously it's not always going to be the most sharp when it comes down to that low, because if you shoot at 1.4, it's going to be focusing on such a little spot versus obviously having more in focus the higher up you go with your f-stop. But it's still pretty cool to show you, and the one thing that can happen is it'll go in and out of focus a little bit more, probably because, well, I'm really up close to it, so sometimes it'll do it. Unless I take, I think, my glasses off, it might do a little bit more face recognition that way. But other than that, I mean, I just love how good the blur is because of this lens. So one of the good reasons why this could be the best focal point in my opinion, and why this should be your first prime lens if you don't own any, and if you do, and you don't have this one, this is why you should get it. So let's jump a little bit more into more video action and also some photos, and I'm going to show you a little bit of why this basically focal length is the best overall lens. So it isn't the best day to go out and take photos right now because it's very sunny now, but it's also freaking cold for once in Texas, which I was praying for this and I finally got it, I guess. But yeah, not many people are out, so I can't really take that many cool photos, but I'm gonna show you a couple of photos that I've taken before so you get an idea of how cool this, basically this, you know, focal length is. Well, it got freaking cold. I wasn't prepared for some nice cold weather, I guess, today. I mean, I was, but I wasn't at the same time. Yeah, I should have brought probably a little bit more layers, just because one jacket is, I mean, this one's like open, and I can close it, I guess, but it just goes through it no matter what. So got a little bit cold, so we're just gonna finish the video in here and talk a little bit about just a few details that I want to cover before I let you guys go. But anyways, so with the 35mm lens, I think just the way that the, if you will, the compression and distortion that it can do on one's face, it just looks a lot smoother to me. It doesn't look too over distorted, or it doesn't make it too compressed either. It's just kind of like that sweet spot, in my opinion. The same thing with video. I've loved using this lens for video. It just looks a lot, I don't know, I guess it could be cinematic, if you will, because they might use that a lot, so you might be used to that focal point, if you will. But it's a really great video to use it for overall just product photography, videos, and portraits, and everything between like that. So I think it's just very smooth to use. I've loved using it for any video that I've wanted to use for B-roll or anything like that. Obviously, 85mm lens is really great for up close shots, kind of style for B-roll as well. But overall, I mean, the 35, if I'm only going to take one lens, I would take the 35, in my all honest opinion, if I have to get rid of all my other lenses. So yeah, it's a great focal length, and it's a great overall lens. It has great dynamic range when it comes down to portraits, products, cars, video, everything. So if this hasn't sold you on it, I mean, let me know what you think, because I clearly just, I'm in love with this lens. It's been a great, phenomenal lens, and it only retails for $6.99 currently as of this video. So it could go up, it could go down. I know Sigma is doing a sale on it, so you might want to go check it out if you want to get one of those, especially this one's for the Sony E-mount, but I know they have for Canon and some other ones, so if not, just look up the perspective lens for your camera mount that you have. But overall, 35mm lens has been great. This prime lens is not as expensive, and it's super sharp and it's super great, so I can't recommend it enough. I just think the 35mm lens and focal length is just too good to not have that as a prime lens for you, especially with the 1.4 aperture that you can get to and get that blurriness. Can't beat it. But with all that said and done, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, share this video with a friend, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.